Today we are going to show you how to get Corticon up and going in Docker. Now normally we would just assume that you already have Docker running somewhere, but for this video we are going to show you how to install Docker as well. If you don't need that, you can skip ahead. For this exercise, we will use AWS, but you're free to use whichever platform you prefer, including running Linux on your own PC. The steps are basically the same for all versions of Linux, but today we will use Debian. Once you log into your AWS account, the first thing you need to do is set up an RSA key pair. Of course, if you're using your own instance of Linux or using another cloud vendor like Azure, you don't need to take this step. To create the key pair, we need to go to the EC2 page within AWS, then select Key Pairs in the top right corner. Select Create Key Pair. Give your key pair a name. In this case we will call it Docker. We will be using PuTTY to make the connection to our instance of Linux, so we need to make sure we select PPK as the file type to make things easy. But if you are using another terminal application like OpenSSH, then you should select a PEM file instead. We then select Create Key Pair on this page and select a location to save the PPK file because we will need that later. Now that we have our key pair, we are ready to start setting up our instance of Linux. Go back to the EC2 dashboard and now we can start setting up our machine. Select Launch Instance. In this case we are using Debian because that's what I am most familiar with, but feel free to choose a flavor of Linux that you're more comfortable with. Just remember that the instructions may differ slightly. That's all. In the search bar type Debian for this exercise. We will select the top option. We are using the free tier for this demonstration, but make sure to consult your sizing guidelines for the application that you intend to deploy. In any case, it doesn't matter too much because one of the great things about cloud architecture is if we make a mistake, we can change the size of our server later. We will use the default options for this exercise, so we don't need to see all the options. We simply just select Review and Launch. Then after checking that everything is as it should be, select Launch to start the build process. When you're ready, select View Instance. This will open the instance dashboard page. You can tell if your machine is up and running because it says Running under Instance State. In the top row of the screen, locate the Connect button and select it. This will open the Credentials tab and tell you all you need to know to connect to our server. The great thing about Linux on AWS is you don't need to know the password of a server because it uses a secured key file. So, to connect to the server we now need to get PuTTY all set up. First, we open PuTTY. Then in the menu on the left side of the screen locate the tab called Off. Then select the Browse button to open the key file we set up earlier. Once you have done that, copy the public DNS name for our server from the Connect tab on the AWS website. A certificate warning message will appear. Just accept the certificate and it will never bother you again, and that's it. You're now connected to the server. All you need to do now is log in, and for that we need a username. Each version of Linux and AWS has a different username, but fortunately they make it easy to find. On the Connect tab there is a line of text labeled Example. It starts with something like SSH. You will see the username as part of that line of text. Just copy that and paste it into the terminal, and that's all you need. Next we'll install the Corticon Docker image, but first we need to make some changes to our AWS setup. This is to enable us to access the Corticon server on port 8080. To do this, open EC2 again, then select the instance of Debian that we have been working with. Select the Security tab, then the security group's URL, edit inbound rules, add rule, set the port to 8080 and then set the source to anywhere IPv4. Then press Save Rule. That's it. We are now ready to install Corticon for Docker on our machine. Once they are downloaded, you need to copy them to your Linux machine. To copy the files, we will use a product called WinCP, but for all intents and purposes this is just an FTP tool. You can use whatever you're most comfortable with. One of the reasons I like WinSCP is it's possible to import saved sessions from PuTTY, which just makes things that little bit easier. Given we have already created a saved PuTTY session, we will just import that into WinSCP. To import the PuTTY sessions into WinSCP, open the Session Manager by selecting Sessions, then select New Session. From here you can choose to enter the server information and manually. You will also need to add the key to WinSCP, and by importing the PuTTY connection this is taken care of. In the Tools menu select Import Sites. You will then be presented with a list of saved sites from PuTTY. Select the appropriate one, which in this case is called Corticon. Once you have imported the site you can hit Login and you will be able to log in with the username admin. Once you're logged in, you should be in the Home Admin directory. Create a new directory in the Home directory called Corticon by selecting the new icon in the toolbar. Now on the left side of the screen, navigate to the location where you have saved the contents of the Corticon Docker image zip file. Select all the files and drag them across to the right side of the screen onto the Corticon directory. If you have done it correctly, the dialog box will appear to show that the files are being copied. To confirm that everything has copied correctly on the right side of the screen, open up the Corticon directory. You should see the same as on the left side. Now we need to log into our Debian server using PuTTY. Once logged in, we need to navigate to the directory that contains our Docker image by navigating to the Corticon directory using the command cd space admin Corticon. From there we need to build our Docker image. To do that we issue the command docker build t-corticon space dot. The build is now complete. So all we have to do now is start the Docker session. So we send the command docker run p8080 to 8080 restart unless stopped Corticon. After a few minutes you will see on the screen Catalina start server startup. This tells you that the decision service is now running. We can confirm this by browsing to the Corticon decision service landing page using either the server DNS or IP address as well as port 8080. Once the login screen appears, use the default username and password admin to log in. Now we need to set up a decision server. This is a container within a container if you like, and the decision service that is consumed by your application is hosted on the decision server. This is also how we license the server. To begin, from the dashboard, select Manage Servers. From the Manage Server page, select the new server icon in the top right corner. Next, choose the option that is appropriate for your instance. In our example, we are only adding a single Corticon server. Give the server a name and provide a brief description of how the server will be used. The IP address field. Put the IP address of the actual server. You can find this on the instance information page that we talked about earlier when we discussed connecting via SSH. The port needs to be a port that we have already opened. In this case, the port is 8080 and you can select the server requires authentication option if desired. Once you're ready, hit Save. The server will attempt to start. If successful, you should see a page similar to this one. Note the green tick in the status column. Now we need to apply the license file to the server. To do this we need to go back into the server and edit the settings. In the top right-hand corner of the server statistics page, select Edit. You will then be presented with the server edit page. In the bottom right half of the page you will see where it says License File. Select Choose File and a file browser will open. Select the license file as provided by your Progress sales representative. The file should be named something like cclicense.jar. Once loaded, hit Save. That's it. The Corticon server is all up and running. To confirm, browse to the same URL as the Corticon server with the extension access/swagger/ and you will see the Swagger UI page to connect the Corticon Studio to the server. Open the Studio, select Project, Package and Deploy Service. On the form, enter the URL to the server with the extension access as shown on the screen. If you set up authentication, enter the username and password and hit Test. If you see a success message, you're good to go. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.